Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner. This is episode number 199A, and our discussion is centered around The Eagle Has Landed, the incredible documentary being created by filmmaker, friend, Mr. Jeffrey Morris. Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? Good to be here.
Good. I'm doing good. Very nice to have you on the show again, Jeffrey.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Great to see you out there.
Yeah.
So, this is a very exciting time in regards to this documentary that's being produced by you, and can't wait to start talking about it. There's a lot of folks that want to touch base with out there that are going to be tuning in. I see the numbers coming in already. Just want to say a quick hello to Jeff Rubel, who's joining us out west. Jeff, welcome to the show. Martin is joining us from New York. Welcome, Martin. Good to see you out there. And Jerry Seward is out there as well. And so, hi, Jerry, and is addressing everybody. So just want to put that out there. So, Jeffrey.
Yes.
The Eagle Has Landed. Now, this is a documentary that is centered around the iconic spaceship of the Eagle from Space 1999.
Yeah, buddy. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The thing is this. It's, so I have been, I think I must have been a little kid. I must have been probably 7 years old or something like that when I saw the first commercials for Space 1999. It was on, I lived in Tempe, Arizona. And I remember there was a fall preview of the TV shows that they were going to be carrying in the fall. And there was a little bit, and he goes, and now we're going to have a look at a new TV series called Space 1999. And they showed clips from the show, and I saw this spaceship, and I was like, whoa, I was like, what is that? And I thought it was just the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I remember after that, I was obsessed with looking at TV Guide to find out when that show was going to come on and everything. I think it came on at like 6 o'clock on Saturday nights or something. And, the Phoenix affiliate there. I think it was on our NBC affiliate, it was a syndicated show. So it was, and I remember from the very first episode, there was just something about the tangibility of that spacecraft and seeing, especially with what happened in the first episode, right? If you think about it, there's so much Eagle screen time in that episode. I'd never seen anything like it, right? Like all the spaceships flying from the Earth to the moon. It's the first time you see it. Then later on, we're doing reconnaissance with it, and we're flying out, and then eventually by the end, when they're dealing with the whole nuclear waste issue, and you've got all these Eagles. So think about it, you get to see all these different configurations of it. You get to see, right? And these visual effects were brilliantly produced and developed to the degree that it looked incredible. It was very believable. I honestly, if I think about it, those were probably the best, aside from 2001, which I don't think I'd even seen yet at that age. Because I saw it like later on when it was like on NBC or something. I think seeing the Eagle, those visual effects on Space 1999 in Breakaway were the best visual effects I had ever seen. I'd never seen anything like it,
Well, to your point too, Jeffrey, because we're about the same age, grew up in the same time frame and everything. And in the early 70s, for me, it was Star Trek and it was Lost in Space. Those were the two shows that I watched. And really, we didn't get to see the Jupiter 2 too much because they once they crashed.
Yeah, it was always on planets. Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't until they showed those 13 episodes that, it was like, okay, this is cool. The Jupiter 2's in flight.
Yeah, now it's flying around. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But, and then with, and of course, then there was the Enterprise, which we saw. But to your point, in regards to 2001, I remember seeing that when I was in 5th grade, and that was on television. I didn't get to.
That's when I saw it. Yeah, I saw it on television, like 5th grade, right? So we were younger than that when Space 1999 came on, right? So I saw that first, and yeah.
But with that opening episode, though, you're absolutely right. I mean, in Breakaway, you had all the different types of Eagles in regards to the freighters, the transporter, the VIP. I mean, we got a full dose. And just to remind our viewers of the Eagle spacecraft, I'm just going to throw up the slide just so that everybody can see that right now for a moment. And let me share the screen here. Let's see. Oh, here we go.
I mean, I can grab one.
There it is.
There we go. Yeah.
I mean, right there. I mean, it is so cool. I mean, you've got, the passenger module that can separate from the whole body. I mean, you've got the Eagle itself. I mean, and then, in the second season, then they were showing different configurations in regards to having the boosters on what they would determine as being Eagle Force. So, yeah, I mean, watching that and just being drawn into it, I can see where the fascination definitely, I mean, personally for myself, I'm with you. I mean, it was like, this is just like really cool.
I mean, there were different aspects of it. I certainly think about watching that first episode because, again, while I enjoyed the series and there were aspects of the series that I really did like, at the end of the day, there was so Breakaway was what it was about for me, in that it was about a moon base in orbit on the moon, orbiting the Earth, right? And so it felt like that's the future that I might get to grow up to be part of. That was what Moonbase Alpha represented for me. So, the routine nature of it, and just the everyday aspect of just we're living on the moon now. We've got all these people up here, and we've got this infrastructure. That was so cool seeing that, and I really felt like, hey, while Star Trek was 300 years in the future, Space 1999 was 30 years in the future, right? So it's like, hey, how old will I be? When less than 30 years in the future, you know what I mean? So it's like that was pretty cool.
Exactly, because it felt like it was tangible, and it was not. It was within our grasp.
Right.
I just want to say hi to a few more people that are tuning in that are out there. So Randy Lee is joining us. He's saying he's joining us from a naval submarine base in Washington.
Wow.
So he's tuning in for the show.
Okay.
Lou is out there. He's joining us from Rhode Island. Welcome, Lou. Good to see you out there. Jack Daly is saying full power. Eric Longstreet is out there. Welcome, Eric. Great to see you out there. Louis Salmon is joining us from New York. Welcome,
Louis.
Lou.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good
to see you. Yeah.
Sue is joining us from Massachusetts. Welcome, Sue. And Christian is joining us from Canada. And Randy is saying, when I was young and living in Wisconsin, I attempted to make a Space 1999 on Hoth movie on VHS. I had Star Wars Snow Speeders and Space 1999 Eagles.
You know what, Randy? The funny part is, I think the Snow Speeder, that was probably my, oh gosh. Well, there's the Enterprise, right, from Star Trek, but the Snow Speeder, I was crazy for that design. I thought that thing was so cool. So yeah, I totally get putting the two together. Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
Sue is commenting. She's saying, Jeffrey, I love all the ships you have on your shelves behind you.
oh, thank you. Yeah. And I've got a few things that this sort of inspired me through childhood, and it just inspired me as a creative person and that sort of thing. So I tried to kind of find a way to collect a few of them. It's funny you talked about Lost in Space, and actually, I think in a way, the Jupiter 2 was the first spaceship that I really, really fell in love with. And, then the Enterprise, then the Eagle, and the Eagle blew them all away. It's kind of fun. So Jupiter 2 hanging out back there is kind of cool, and a few other ones.
The Jupiter 2, it definitely had its merits.
It did. It was cool to see a flying saucer a flying saucer as much like a Forbidden Planet, a flying saucer as a human ship was really cool. That was a really neat design. So yep.
My wife Sherry's out there. She's saying, hi guys, never saw Space 1999 until I met Rory. How did I miss it? Love the Eagle.
Cool.
Gordon is also joining us. Gordon, welcome.
How's it going?
Deborah is joining us from Phillipsburg. Welcome, Deborah. And Lewis just said the Eagle seemed like the realistic successor of the Apollo program.
Absolutely. No question about it. Absolutely. Yeah.
May is also joining us. Welcome, May. And Ian Morris is joining us.
Oh, that would happen to be my son.
Nice.
How you doing, buddy? All right.
Thanks for joining us, Ian.
Cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I'm very, very proud of Ian. He's on track to become a commercial pilot. And he's, as a matter of fact, when we were, he's actually very, very good at it. And he's doing great with it. And when he was little, we used to build a little Eagle cockpit and pretend we were flying the Eagle side by side and everything when he was about 2-3 years old. So it's kind of funny going way back. So he's when he went to college, I actually gave him one of my rescue Eagles to have with him. So it's kind of fun. So yeah.
Very nice.
Cool. Yep.
Nice memento.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Ian. Great to have you out there, and congratulations too. That's great.
Yeah.
So this kind of leads into one of the questions too, Jeffrey, in regards to, I mean, we're talking about the Eagle, and then obviously the fascination with it, and then how it's inspiring and everything, and it's really, it just kind of, you know, blows us away in regards to everything. So a lot of people might, you know, say, in regards to doing a documentary, why the Eagle, which kind of really answered.
Well,
away.
I think it's interesting because I obviously we've started kind of floating a little bit of this out to social media as we start to talk about it, and there've been questions where it's really interesting because most of the people who I see who are responding, a lot of people get it. They understand why the Eagle was so monumental for so many of us. There are a few others who are like, well, you know, can you do an entire documentary about one sci-fi spaceship? And I think people are going to be really surprised when they see the breadth and the depth of the love for this vehicle and the reason behind it. And I think it's really not about the Eagle, right? It's definitely not. This documentary is not about Space 1999. It's about the Eagle.
Right.
And beyond the Eagle, what it's really about is the fact that for an entire generation, those of us who are sort of between the ages of, say, I don't know, early 50s to mid 60s, I think we were all young enough. This was a unique period in human history when we were going to the moon. And this was just after we'd been to the moon, right? And to tangibly be able to step outside and look up at the moon and know that there were people walking around up there, it's a pretty amazing, it was an amazing feeling. And it was something that felt like the future was just right there. Like we were right on the steps of something really, really big. And I don't know that there's ever been a time. I would have to imagine maybe a similar time would be when they were prepping the ships to go across the Atlantic or something for what it must have been like, you know. But the idea that there was this new world and we were exploring it, and we were you know, on the verge of something very, very big. And I think millions and millions of kids saw this stuff and thought, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be part of this. There's something bigger that's going to happen. And I think Space 1999 came along at just the right time, sort of before Star Wars. Think about it. It's right between the end of Apollo in 1972 and Star Wars in 1977. Right. This gap in the middle where we were still connecting to real space exploration. And the idea that right. And I think you and I were talking earlier about Skylab. Like Skylab was so cool to me. It was like, wow, these guys are up there in a space station. They're staying up there for like extended periods of time and they're doing experiments. It's like, it just felt like we were heading somewhere. And I think this fictional vessel exemplified a dream, right? It exemplified a dream of where we were headed, where we thought we were headed, at least, you know. So that's really what I want to get at in this documentary, is really talking about that sort of cultural time and that cultural impact, and how the Eagle epitomizes it. And my ultimate thesis of the documentary is that the reason why so many people around the world are enamored with the Eagle is because it sort of it embodies a future that didn't happen for a lot of us. That's what this, and so this documentary, it's going to, I'm going to be talking with one of the astronauts who walked on the moon in this, and he and I are actually going to hang out and talk about what it was like to be on the moon. And I want to pick his brain about what did he think of science fiction depictions of being on the moon, or where did he think we were going to be 25 years later, that sort of thing, right?
No, that's pretty amazing that one of the astronauts that was actually on the moon.
Actually on the moon. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. So I'm going to be talking with him. I mean, you know, then I'm going to be talking with Brian Johnson, who created the Eagle and brought it to life. You know, so the idea is that the way the structure and flow of this documentary will work is you're going to get a sense of what was the time period like, and it's more of a personal journey. I don't know if you did you watch Cosmos, the Carl Sagan?
Yes, back in the day. Yeah.
And you remember the subtitle was a personal journey, right? In some ways, the Eagle's Landing is like a personal journey for me, where I'm going to really talk about what was it like being a kid watching Apollo, and
Right.
seeing and wanting Tang and wanting
Dang, that's great.
and thinking the lunar rover was the coolest car ever and all those things, right? Being a child. And then, like I said, coming out of that world, and then and it wasn't just me. I'm going to talk to a bunch of really cool people about that time period. Then we're going to go and talk about how Space 1999 came along, and how 1999 introduced a vision of a potentially plausible future in terms of the moon base and the Eagles and things like that, and how that impacted us as kids. And then talk about how did they make that show and how they do it and that sort of thing. And then yeah. Oh, go ahead. And then I'll tell you more about it later. But go ahead, please. Yeah.
Oh, sure. No, I was just going to say the 70s definitely had its own tone. I always like to say on the show, too, every decade really does have its own tone. But in regards to the space program, I mean, 1969, and I always felt connected because the first moon landing actually took place on my third birthday. It was on July 20th of 69. So I always felt that kind of connection with that. But even going in, like you were saying, when you're going into the 1970s, and we would hear on the radio or we would hear in the news that there was a trip being planned to the moon, and the astronauts were going to be going into space, and this was something that was a normal occurrence that was happening in the early 70s up until, like you said, 1972, when the last mission took place with Apollo 17. And then shortly after that, it was followed with Skylab that went up in 1973. So we were hearing that. So there was that constant feed of information where it really felt like things were going to develop, things were going to be happening. And then in 1975, with Space 1999 coming out, having an established moon base, and then also, again, the transportation to and from Earth to the moon was the Eagle transporter.
Right.
So this was 24 years into the so-called future from
right.
But it felt like, okay, you know what? We could buy into this. This could actually happen.
This could actually happen. And it felt, and I'll tell you, for me, Alan Carter was a hero in that he flew that ship. And I was like, well, I want to fly that ship when I grow up. I want to fly, it's like I could grow up and fly that ship. If they have them, I want to do that. I want to be one of those people. I mean, that felt very, very tangible. And I just, something I want to continue, a thread of what you just said earlier that I think is important to talk about a little bit more, is about how it was impacting us culturally. How I remember in the news, those moon missions were a big deal. They talked about it. It really, you know what I mean? It was like, it was a big event. And it was I remember sometimes I got to stay home from school and watch some of this stuff. My parents let me do that. And it was, watching Jules Bergman and Walter Cronkite and all these people talk about this stuff. It was super cool. It was, like I said, there's nothing like that now. No. And it just isn't. And I don't, so I really want to bring to life and talk about the impact on us. And I think that in a way, it might have had more impact on some of us than anyone because we were children. Does that make sense? I mean, it's like,
sure, because we were most impressionable.
We were impressionable. That's the thing. We were impressionable as children. And I think that, while there were grown-ups who were probably like, oh, wow, they're going to the moon again. We were like, they're going to the moon. It was like a huge, huge deal. So
I just want to read a couple of the comments that came in.
Sure.
Christian wrote, exactly, Jeffrey. I remember watching the first moon landing live in 1969. I was about 8 years old. And then my favorite sci-fi shows were Lost in Space, Star Trek. Very exciting times. Eric is commenting, saying human Mars exploration would have been nice too. Ian commented and said, it definitely disappoints me that my generation doesn't have something as awe-inspiring as the Apollo program. And that's the crux of what we're talking about.
What we're talking about, exactly. Yeah.
And Martin commented, the BBC did a short-run drama series that was based on the moon called Moonbase 3 at around the same time as Space 1999.
I saw a little bit of that. Yeah. No, it's really interesting, and it's a fascinating. I don't feel like anyone's really talked about this before, and what this was like. And so, so it's not just. So it's almost like that. Again, this documentary, The Eagle, is a catalyst to talk about this other stuff. And again, I'm going to say, when you have people like Jan Venneberg in Denmark, who's building a 25-foot eagle in his backyard. You have people collecting these things. There's more collecting of it now than there has been in 50 years, right? And people are really crazy for this thing. Why? That's the question. I believe it ties back to this. I really do. Yeah. Yep.
Well, it's interesting too, Jeffrey, because when you're talking about collectability and everything, and back in '75 when the show came out, this is what we had when we were kids. This is the model kit that we were having, and to have something like this just seems so cool that because it seemed again plausible that maybe in the future we would be able to do that. And
well, how about this? I mean, I'm sure you had this.
Yes. Right? Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to school with this, and there it is right there. Yep. Right. I mean, and it's like there's guys driving around the moon. There's this. You see, like honestly, I'm going to tell you, I would have just liked a TV show about being on the moon. I didn't need aliens and traveling around the universe or any of that stuff. That's just me. I'm no offense to anyone who likes that stuff. It's fine. But I'm just saying I would have loved a show that was just about how do we live and work on the moon. And because I believe the challenge of just surviving being on the moon, I think there'd be all kinds of things that could come up that people would never expect. Problems with your food, problems with illness, problems with waste, problems with fighting with other groups of people over resources. I mean, there's so many things you could have done just about being on the moon. You know what I mean? I would love to have seen a show that was just about that. So it was, and so I watched the series, and I was like, okay, I'll watch this show because I get to see more eagles. But for me as a kid, I was like, all right, I'm putting up with all this weird stuff because I get to see eagles and I get to see these characters that I really love. I get to see Victor do science, and that's the stuff that I really, really dug. And I wanted to see, NASA's going to the moon in 1972 and Skylab, and then we go to Mars, and then we eventually make the Moonbase Alpha, and that, that's the world that I wanted to be part of.
Well, I think in the back of my mind too, even as a kid in the 70s, 75, 76, when the show was on, you're thinking ahead, okay, as time goes by, are we going to get there? Is this going to happen? And I even remember too, as and I'm jumping ahead just for the moment, because I mean, our discussion, we're pretty much in the 70s, but I remember when the 80s came and I was like wondering, is it going to happen? What's where are we going with this? And then even with the 90s, and it was a letdown, because it's like,
well, I was a weird kid in that for some reason I picked up right after Star Wars. So both I paid attention to politics, and I knew that Nixon was not, when they approved, they had that kind of fork in the road. It's like, do we go to Mars or do we do the space shuttle?
Right.
And when we decided to do the space shuttle, I was like, well, it looks cool. What's it going to do?
Right.
Oh, it's going to go. Where's it going to go? It's going to go up about 300 miles, and it'll deliver satellites, and it'll do stuff. Okay. But we're going to do something with it, right? That's right. That was the feeling. And then when when Star Wars came out, there were lots of kids I knew, especially the kids I knew, were just lost their minds over Star Wars, right? And I thought Star Wars was cool, but I was still like, yeah, but we got real space stuff going on, right? I want to talk about that. I saw everyone's attention drift over to Star Wars. Yeah. So it's almost like the energy of being interested in real space stuff and everything, Star Wars started to kind of take it over, right? And everything. So then between Star Wars and then kind of following the politics of all of it, I started realizing this isn't going to happen. We're not going to do this. It's not going to happen. And so I knew that back when I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 years old, I started feeling like this. As a matter of fact, part of why I became a filmmaker was because I was like, I want to grow up and make movies about really going into space to hopefully motivate people to keep going into space. I really did. I really wanted to do that. And because I could just sense it, like we weren't going to do it. And it was so disappointing. And I have to tell you, I can't begin to say, it's almost like a sci-fi story, dystopian sci-fi story. If someone said to me, it gave me like a rundown of what 2023 is like back in, whatever year, right? It said, hey, in 2023, it's going to be like this politically, and people are going to feel like this, and it's going to be like that and everything. We'll have these really cool, phones and this social media stuff and these things, but we won't have a moon base. We won't have any of these advanced technologies like that. We won't have, it would have been devastating to hear that. 2023, Think about that, So
because it was so far into the future. I mean, when you think about the
exactly
75, you're talking. I mean, literally, it's the 50th anniversary is like now. I mean, it's
right,
50 years, and
right.
that's a long
That's a
time.
long time, and so to say, hey, 50 years from now, I don't know. I mean, like I said, nothing against now. I mean, there's some cool stuff, but it's not the civilization I thought we were going to have, what I hoped we were going to have, right? Because the one thing I want to add to this is that in addition to, it wasn't just about having all this technology and going out into space. It was about the fact that that experience was going to make us better.
Mm.
Right. And so we were going to be better. We were going to be smarter. We were going to get along.
Mhm.
We were going to, all these things, right? This path to this sort of Gene Roddenberry Star Trek land.
Yep.
I really felt like if we just kept going, that might have happened. Right. That's the part that that's the disappointment that I feel about it, so.
And, it's interesting too with that comment, and I'm veering away for a little bit from the Eagle, but in the one episode in Rules of, what was it, Rules of Luton, they indicate that there was a third world war, and that everything pretty much was devastated, and then the people that were left standing pretty much realized that they had to pull together, take their resources, and work together to make things better. And then eventually that led to the moon base and everything, and the exploration. So to your point in regards to that, it's a shame that those type, not a shame in regards to war, but I mean, it's a shame that we haven't gotten to that point where we are all working together for, as a world.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're literally watching the world split into factions and get polarized at this point. It's very sad.
It's so separated. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I said, it's not about getting political, but I just want to say that, like, this is a big part again of what this documentary is about for me, is to be able to talk about these ideas and to really illuminate that and have a lot of open discussion about it. So yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. It's great stuff. Just want to say that Todd's out there. Todd, welcome. Good to see you out there. And Martin commented, he said, it took 60 years from the Wright brothers to landing on the moon. We have stagnated since. Yeah. And that's crazy in itself if you think about it. That's a very good comment, Martin.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? And it's just another part for this is also science fiction for me was about illuminating avenues to the future, avenues to where we could go, what it could be like. And if you think about it, Star Trek has the same thing of like a world war, and then out of the ashes of a world war, we start to figure it all out, right?
Right.
That's sad. It's like we shouldn't have to do that, and to have to figure this out, and we should have been able to do it without it, So, without it being that. So, yeah. Anyway, so the Eagle is really cool, and it still looks visually stunning 50 years later. It looks plausible 50 years later. I think it's a timeless design. It's something that it's interesting. Some of the crew members that I've been working with as I shoot the documentary, a lot of them are younger and they've never heard of Space 1999. They certainly haven't seen the Eagle. And then they start seeing this. They're like, whoa. Like, I had this crew when I was down at Wonderfest, and they just could not, they were all young guys, like 20s, early 30s. And they were just like, that thing is so cool. Why have I never heard of this? This is so awesome. So it's interesting. I wonder what will come of that, with this coming out and being able to, show some of that too. So, yeah.
Well, that's, and that aspect of it is really neat too, because really, I mean, that's a part of science fiction history. So the fact that they're being made aware of it and tapping into that, I mean, that in itself is pretty neat. But it's also in regards to the aura of the times and the history. I mean, it's so important that type of nostalgia and that type of history is not forgotten. And as time passes on, I mean, things tend to get lost unless they're documented.
Right.
And when you actually have experienced something and gone through it, the feeling is different than whether you've read it. So with having it put into a form of entertainment in regards to a documentary, whether it's, through the arts, it's a way that can be expressed, that tone can be conveyed, and then folks can be made aware if they didn't go through it. And
Yes,
that's
yes,
really important.
you're exactly right. I mean, my whole point here is that this is like a cultural time capsule in a way, and I think, and I'm hoping that for a lot of people who will see this documentary, they'll go, "I had no idea. I did not know," or maybe, I think there are people who were like, well, we know for a fact that there were many people who thought it was a waste of money to go to the moon, and they didn't understand it, and they thought it was wrong. It's like, what are we doing? We got, Vietnam, and we've got, poverty, and we have this, and why are we spending millions of dollars to send some guys up there? What is that for? And everything. And honestly, I can understand why someone might have that viewpoint, right? It's just that there's another side to it, and it's complex, and why do we spend money on lots of things? There's right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think that people really know how much of their everyday life was impacted by those advances, how much that changed our civilization and helped from everything from medicine to transportation to basic engineering, all the stuff that computing, all this stuff changed because we took that leap. And as the comment said earlier, it's like we've stagnated since in a lot of ways. I know for a lot of people they don't see it that way, but I think if you were really tied into that time and you had a taste of that potential, you sense it. You sense that something was missing. There's a hole. There's a hole there. So that's what this is about. So the people going, how could you make a documentary about one spaceship? It's like, well, this is how you make a documentary about one spaceship. So, yeah.
And what I'd like to do is take the opportunity to show maybe a couple of the special effects shots that you've actually put together that are going to be a part of this.
Sure. I'll preface by saying that one of the things that I think is really fascinating is the idea of taking something that's 50 years old, and at a time when they didn't even have computer controlled, motion control cameras or anything like that yet. You certainly didn't have, computer generated imagery, nothing of the sort. And the kind of sleight of hand and the way that those visual effects were executed and created, it was absolutely amazing what they pulled off 50 years ago. And I mean, I'm going to have some new effect shots of the Eagle in this documentary. And one of the things that I really wanted to do, first off, I feel like a lot of contemporary visual effects move way too fast in terms of spacecraft and things like that. Everything's like, it's just right. It's like, it's one of those things that like when I see like the new Star Trek stuff and the ships, like when they drop out of warp and it's just, it's like, what is this? It drives me crazy. And everything, these ships that are supposed to be massive, 400 meters long or whatever, and they're moving like fighter jets and all this stuff, right? And so I thought, if I'm going to do new effects of the Eagle, I'd like to make it feel like it has some of the limitations of what they would have done 50 years ago, but to do it with today's technology. So that was a big part of it. And I also wanted to show artistically how beautiful this thing is to me and be able to elaborate on that feeling. So I just wanted to preface that's what creating these visual effects were about for me.
No, that's a wonderful way to set up the shots. And I'm going to put those out there. Before I do, I'm just going to say, Claudia just joined us. Just want to say hi to Claudia. Thank you for being out there, Claudia. And Scott Anderson Keys said, hi guys, I'm very excited about this project, Jeffrey. Thanks so much for doing this.
Absolutely. No, the honor's all mine. Thank you.
And Gordon just said world premiere.
Well, world premiere of some effect shots.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's fun to talk about. Yes, Sue. Why it's a cool. Oh, thank you. Yes, a cool documentary about one spaceship. Absolutely. Yeah. So.
All right. So let me set this up, and this will just be 1 second here.
Sure. Now, these visual effects were. I want to shout out to the guys that put some of this stuff together with me. So I worked with an artist named James Messino, who's based in New York, who works on a lot of cool shows. Actually, he works on some of the newer Star Trek shows. He worked on Star Trek Picard actually this past season as well, which is awesome. But he's working with me on my film Persephone, and we did a lot of animatics. And I kind of would take my Eagle and I'd go, hey, I want to try to make sure. One of the things I want to do is we've got these girders, these beams, this support structure. Wouldn't it be cool if you could see the sun pass through those. They couldn't have done something like that 50 years ago. Let's do that in this first shot. Let's see the sun pass through those. That was one of the things. So he and I did a lot of work to sort of prep these shots, and we worked real time and over Zoom, and we were able to configure the shots in Maya, and then I sent them off to an artist that I've worked with for a number of years. Really admire his work. His name's Tobias Richter. He runs a company called the Lightworks in Germany, in Cologne, and Tobias did the final shots, which is how we did this. So
yeah, and they are incredible. Okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's one shot. I was thinking about when I came up with this shot, I was thinking a lot about you probably want to run them more than once. So people let it run a couple times. But the if you think about movies like Star Trek 2 and 3, and how like I love Star Trek Motion Picture. That's my favorite Star Trek film. But I get why. Like, it's funny. I've figured out how to say it. Star Trek: The Motion Picture is my favorite Star Trek film, and Star Trek 2 is the best Star Trek film. Okay, which is because I understand why people consider it the best. But if you think about those films 1, 2, and 3 and how they depict the Enterprise is like a work of art, and you can tell that the visual effects artists in those first 3 movies completely get it. They completely get how to do it. That's what I'm trying to do with the Eagle, is to show, yeah.
I have to say, when we first got our we got a big screen TV back in 2016. The first thing I did was, and Shari's out there, she'll attest to this. It was probably 8 o'clock at night. Made sure all the lights were out. It was in the winter, and what I did was I put in the scene in which Kirk first sees the Enterprise for the first time and used with Scotty, and just that whole sequence. It's probably my favorite sequence one of my favorite sequences from the whole movie.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about this. The Enterprise is a character in itself.
It is, absolutely.
And it's just the effects of that movie were incredible. And the one scene that really stood out for me too is when it leaves dry dock and it's coming around, passing the Earth, and then the sun rises in the background. And that's just
our good buddy John Avery has that. That's his Facebook profile picture. Is that scene, right? And I think that for me, that's literally that moment where the sun comes up, over the curvature of the Earth. That scene is the future. That epitomized the future. That was great. And it's funny. I actually am gonna say that I think that the Eagle may be the most remembered character from Space 1999 in a way. If you think about it, right? I mean, so it's a character. The Enterprise is a character. The Eagle's a character. I'm on the fence on whether or not the Millennium Falcon's a character. I tend to think it's, Han Solo's the character, and the Millennium Falcon is like an extension of him,
right?
Whereas the Enterprise and the Eagle are characters in the show. So yeah.
No, totally agree on that. Todd just said that's the best sequence ever. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna show that same shot again, because I'll play it a couple times more just so everybody can digest that.
Yeah.
So let me do that.
And we should preface that these are scenes that we did for a there's a premiering next week will be the promotional video for the Kickstarter that we're doing for this documentary. So I wanted to do a few shots to show the quality of what we're trying to do and pull off here. So this is my way of sort of bringing the Eagle into the 21st century. So
very cool.
Yeah. So what is it like when you see a shot like that, like what we did with the shot? What do you like about it? What would you say
I love the way it's coming from for me what appears to be the Earth, and then just the aura, and it's just it's graceful. It's just it's on an angle. That's I always like shots like that too, and it's just opening itself up, and it's pretty cool.
I also wanted to, if you play it one more time, I also wanted it to feel like a camera, there's a camera person shooting the scene.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So this sort of tilt that it does, and it's like it loses the ship as it goes out of frame, which I think is kind of fun. So, and it's a beautiful Earth back there. Yeah, it is the Earth for sure. But I mean, think about it. It's almost like this is my way of reinterpreting Breakaway, right?
Right.
You'd almost imagine Commander Koenig being on there, and he's on his way to Moonbase Alpha. It's that kind of thing. So,
Gordon said in regards to liking about it, it's everything. Yeah. And
thank you.
yes, and Lewis is right. It is. That's a good word for it, Lewis. It's majestic.
Well, I'm trying to show the world how much I love this thing, right? And why do I love it? Again, it's for all the stuff we've already talked about. That's why I love it so much, right? I didn't know why I loved it until I started really going down this path. So this is the first shot that I came up with, and this is going to have the the thing I was telling you guys about with the sun.
I think this is my favorite. I just love that.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to do with this shot was to I wanted to do something they couldn't do 50 years ago, which is a 180 shot. Like think about it, they would have had to have it fly past the camera, then cut to a reverse angle, and then fly it, fly the other way.
Right.
Okay, we can do this now. And with motion control, you could do this, but with obviously with computer generated imagery, you can do it even better. I also really dig that we've got the British Isles up there, and it's kind of fun.
I love the amount of detail of the Earth, of the Eagle.
Yeah,
and then even with the moon too, because you have it's like the dark side and the lit side.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
I'll play it one more time.
Sure. The one thing I wanted to do that I just didn't have time for, but when we get further into it, is actually start showing thrusters firing and showing course corrections and all the stuff. And again, this is even still a little airplane-y in how it's flying, but I went airplane-y because I thought that was more, as you say, majestic, right? To go sort of with more of an airplane style movement. But eventually I'd like to depict it as like flying like a LIM would, or flying like an Apollo CSM kind of thing. Like how would it fly where you're firing reaction control thrusters? And I mean, this thing is beautiful because it actually has thrusters on it, right?
Yeah.
So, and and 50 years ago, they couldn't have had that specific of an effect, right? I suppose you could have made a really big one of these and done close-ups or something, maybe. But then again, it's like, why? It's a TV show. You don't have time and budget and to do all that. But the one thought I have is that now that we have the ability to do this with computers, it's like, why not show this thing moving around more like an actual spaceship?
All the aspects of it, right?
Right. All the aspects, and actually use those aspects and actually make them functional. That's it. I mean, they have these thrusters on the command module. Let's see them fire, right? I mean, that would be really interesting. So, yeah. So I'd love to do some of that stuff.
That would be very, very cool. Okay, I'm going to set up the next shot. Let's see.
And this is kind of an introductory shot that kind of gets us into the video itself. But I wanted to do something like this again. Like I've never seen an eagle like this. You're flying. You're coming in on it like it's such an obscure angle like this, and I thought that was kind of cool. So
which makes it very unique and very cool.
That was the idea, was to do something you hadn't. Now, for those of you who are what I like to term, well, actually, I learned this term from my friend Rod Pyle, who's a space historian. He calls a certain group of people rivet counters, who will like literally look at something and go, that airplane wing, you made that, and it actually has 536 rivets in there, and you depicted it with only 521, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Obviously there could be nitpicks with this model, but I think Tobias did a wonderful job building it. I mean, the question is, you've got something that even in the series itself, there were many incarnations of it, right? And obviously, as we know, they were damaged and repainted and rebuilt and all these different versions of it, right? We had two-dimensional picture versions of it that they blew apart. There's all these different versions of it. And obviously, you've had all these different model kits and different, artistic depictions of it, right? So at the end of the day, what's an eagle? Right? What's the official eagle? There's really no official eagle, right? It's like and so I think I'm very proud of what what he did here, and how we were able to use a model of this accurate. I think it's accurate enough. Let's put it that way. I feel good about it. I think we're on the right track.
It's a beautiful representation of what the eagle is, and it showcased very well. I mean, and I'm going to play it one more time here just so everybody can see it. And depending upon what episode, to your point, depending upon what episode you're watching, it's going to be a different eagle. I mean, all the way from the 44-inch down to the 11-inch. I mean, they're all different.
Another thing for me too is I've studied visual effects all my life, and that's been along with space and different types of science. Visual effects is another thing that's been dear to my heart, and so one of the things you're seeing when you see these shots is you're getting a sense of kind of how I see visual effects and how I again, I just feel like we're not giving a lot of the movies and nowadays are not giving, and TV shows are not giving these things the due that they could have as characters. So that's a big part of what this is all about for me. So yeah, so it's really cool to be able to share some of this with the audience. So
no, it's much appreciated that we're able to do that.
Are you going to show the final one? Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Set that up right now.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
This is what we call a paint scraper, this shot in the visual effects industry. So the idea here is that the camera's really close to the vehicle as it shoots by.
It's buffering.
Reload.
Let me try reloading. Try this again. Hold on 1 second. Let's see here. Okay, I got it. I'm just going to move it over. It'll just take me 1 second.
No problem. I bet you we have a very patient audience out there.
Yeah, they're pretty great out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And as I like to say, if I didn't have a technical issue on this show,
it wouldn't be the show.
It wouldn't be the show. Okay, here we go. Oh, and let me expand it a little bit more, Tim.
Sure.
We'll do it again. That's cool. That's very cool. Here, I'll play it again.
And again, that's probably the most contemporary shot in the piece, I would say. But I wanted to have some really dynamic, propulsive movement and motion in that shot. Because obviously this thing's supposed to be cruising across space, where we're traveling between the Earth and the Moon in a number of hours, right? As opposed to what took the Apollo astronauts 3 days to get there. This thing gets there in hours. So I thought, let's do something that feels like it's got some energy to it. So
that's pretty neat.
Yeah. So
very nice.
So I'm planning to do a whole bunch more shots, for the documentary, and then also, we have other goals. I'd like to work with Brian Johnson to actually create a bunch, what would it be like for Brian to direct visual effects shots of the Eagle in 2023? That's a mission of the documentary. I want to see what it can turn out to be, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. And we're actually talking about doing some work with miniatures as well. So we'll see what happens.
Well, especially having Brian involved in it. I mean, his work is just, it's obviously it's iconic, but to bring it fast forward, to 50 years and having it with, taking place now and with those modifications, that in itself is going to be very unique and very special. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
I just want to read some of the, Darren is out there. Darren Peters is out there. Darren, welcome. He just said, hi, Roy and Jeffrey. As a child, I loved Space 1999 because of the unique style developed by Jerry and Sylvie Anderson, including the series music, futuristic vehicles, technology, Eagle, Comlock stun, etc. It is the whole package.
I could not agree more. Actually, it's you're absolutely right, because we're focused on the Eagle because that's what this is about. But along with this, I thought a Comlock was just as darn cool, pretty much.
Oh, yes.
Comlocks were awesome. And the idea that you had this ability to talk to someone on a screen on a mobile device like that and do it. That was so cool. You know, that was really, really neat. And obviously the stun gun, which I mean, how many kids grab their father's staple gun and it was a stun gun. I certainly did. You know, I was like in the garage and grabbing it and running around, and my dad's like, "Why are there staples on the floor?" You know, it's like, so,
I used to make I Legos was my thing. I was always building spaceships and always building like, you know, rockets and stuff. And what I would do is I would make the comlock out of Lego, and I would make the stun gun out of Lego, and just to become creative. I would do the same thing with you know, doing the communicator. And I've said to this day, it's the communicator and the comlock are my favorite props. I remember, you know, when those Dunruss cards came out in 1976, and you had the, you know, the close-ups where you could see, you know, the comlocks, you know, the two that Martin and Barbara are holding, and it was like that was just amazing.
Well, got like right here, I've got the comlock right here, you know.
Yep.
And just the idea of being able to, the idea that they were able to pull that off, you know, where you could see the characters in there and everything, and
so cool.
It was so cool. It was just, you know, and there was just something about this, the official thing, and the command, you know, and the idea that when you get to the base, they give you one, you know, and
it was just very personal. And
it was really cool. And I remember just the other day, my buddy and I were joking about like you wouldn't want to lose this thing. So you'd be like, you know, I guess calling them up like, "Hey, I can't get out of this room because I lost my combo." But I mean, there was something really, really cool about this, and then this thing, you know, the idea that it was shaped so differently than a standard pistol, right? That felt really futuristic, and then also there's a part of it to me that also felt like they're trying not to kill you with this. It could kill you, but it's not about killing; it's about other stuff. That was something it felt like, you know, which was kind of an interesting futuristic idea to me. That's my mind made that up, but that's how I saw it, you know.
No, and you're absolutely right. I mean, and they refer to it as a stun gun, even though, and the stun kill selector didn't come on until like the later episodes. So initially, it was like in Breakaway, that's just what it was. And I think, you know, and our friend David Hirsch, when he did the tech manual, if I remember correctly, I think he had different functionalities for the stun gun that he incorporated, where you could maybe, you know, cut through metal or
heat up rocks. Like
heat up rocks,
heat up rocks, or you're stuck on a planet.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's the wrong show.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. It's really cool. So
Sue commented also earlier. She said, "Oh my God, that's a totally beautiful shot. I love seeing the Earth behind the eagle as it approaches the camera."
Thanks, Sue.
And Lewis also said, "I have so many ideas for shots of the eagle. It's the reason I have so many of them."
Yeah.
And the functionality, Jerry's saying, the functionality of the eagle has always been breathtaking to me. That enhances the feeling. Yeah, it's just. Ian commented too and said, "I may have to. The Expanse." Oh, talking about the Expanse is easily my favorite sci-fi right after the Battlestar Galactica reboot or the Next Generation. Andrew Ray is joining us. He's joining us from Australia. Welcome, Andrew. He said, "What I loved about the eagle is that it looked like it was real. It was so believable." Yes, absolutely. And Lewis said Brian Johnson was a huge inspiration to him as well.
Not just you, man. Not just you. So it's funny. I'm not a big fantasy guy. The only fantasy film I really like is Dragon Slayer, and then finding out that he was in charge of the visual effects for that and everything worked on that. That's really, really cool. So yeah.
There's that connection, which is pretty amazing.
Well, and then The Empire Strikes Back was like, I mean, he worked on that and he won an Oscar for that. And Empire was like, that was a transcendent movie for me in terms of just, you know, the way like I like Star Wars, but Empire was like, it was like a different level, you know.
Oh yeah,
what was going on. Yeah,
you're bringing that up, and I remember going to the movies because with my one friend Joe Metz, and I remember seeing the previews for Empire Strikes Back, and it was almost like a million TIE fighters coming at you through the asteroid field, and it was like, oh my God, that is just, the effects were just amazing, and that was what, 1980 or 1979?
Yeah.
So very, very cool stuff. One of the things I do want to just share too is, and this is something that has been shared a little bit, and this is in regards to the project. Whoops, did it come up? It did not come up. Hold on 1 second here. Bear with me 1 second. There it goes. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of folks that have been submitting their photos, and as we like to say, back in the Christmas of 1976.
I don't think you got what you wanted there.
Oh, it didn't come up? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, unless you want to see stars, just stars.
Oh, no. Let me remove that. Whoops.
All right.
I'm seeing it, but you're not. I wonder what happened here. Oops. Front slide. All right. Let me try this again. Okay. I think this is going to work. Oh, now I'm just seeing the stars. I apologize.
No, there you go.
Okay, perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Christmas of 1976 was a huge Christmas, especially for Eagle fans, Space 1999 fans, because the Mattel Eagle came out, and that was just amazing. So one of the things that in regards to this documentary that was being encouraged and asked is if folks have a photo of themselves with an eagle, or if they have a photo from themselves from the past when they were a kid with an eagle, especially the Mattel Eagle, to email it and also include a blurb why you like the eagle as much as that you do. Mm-hmm. And then also to send that to eagledocumentary@gmail.com. Mm-hmm. And a lot of submissions have been coming in on this, right, Jeffrey?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's something I wanted to just put out there in regards to
that. No, for sure. And we've got a new website that we're developing that will showcase people's stories and photos and things, so they can especially the childhood ones. I love those. Those are great. So
yeah,
amazing how many people have photos from '76 about that. I actually there's one of me with my eagle, but I can't find it. I don't know what it is. So I don't know, but it is what it is. I remember it, but that was the best Christmas I ever had, because my parents got me one, and they didn't realize that my relatives who were visiting had gotten me one. So I had two, and it was two of those. It was insane. It was insane. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, because I could do like the main one and like have a mission, and then like put the, I could take the front off and the back off and make it, and I like that would be like flying next to it, and
right.
I was having a lot of fun. So it was cool. It was a good time. Yeah.
No,
and I actually still have one of those that's in really good condition that I'm going to, give away as part of this contest for people getting involved with the Kickstarter, which I think is fun. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the Kickstarter, we're going to switch slides. So tell us a little bit about that, and then we can let the folks know.
Well, so we've self-financed the, kind of a portion of the shoot and got it up and running and everything. But at the end of the day, we're partnered with a company called 0.0. They're out of New York. They do amazing TV shows like Parts Unknown with Anthony Bourdain, and the David Letterman series that's on Netflix, stuff like that. They're another one of my favorite show called Somebody Feed Phil. They're great, and we're partnered with them, and we were all going to kind of package this thing together and go get a studio or Netflix or someone to come and finance this documentary, right? And with the strikes and all the different issues and all the stuff that's going on, it's just not a good time to be pitching stuff in Hollywood right now at all. And I was like, look, we've got momentum. I want to make this thing and get it going. So we, as a group, decided let's, I'll take it on and do a Kickstarter that's specifically about this project. So, and so we're going to be, raising some money, and we want the fans to help us and get this off the ground and get it done. And that's what we're looking for, is support. The good news again is that we've already started, as you can see, the visual effects and stuff. We've invested. It's not like we're at ground zero on this, but I think, one of the things that's beautiful about Kickstarter and other crowdsourcing, crowdfunding situations like this is when you're able to get amazing projects like this off the ground that maybe the studio system wouldn't quite get. There's always a curve of getting their attention and keeping their attention, and getting them to come on board and actually finance projects like this. Right. And the other thing too is that I was hoping that I want to tell a story that's more fan oriented, you know, and I know that the Hollywood view of this would be, well, what do famous celebrities think of the Eagle? You know, and it's not that I don't want to have some favorites. There are going to be a couple famous celebrities in this documentary, but at the end of the day, it's the fans that I care about, and I want to hear what they have to say. And this is a big part of this journey, is also me listening and getting to hear people's perspectives, people like yourself, you know, and everything. So I think it's really, really important. So financing it via fans and the crowd that's going to love this thing is going to let me make something that's more geared toward that crowd. That's a big part of this, you know, whereas if we did it with Hollywood funding, it would probably not be the documentary. Well, I've been talking to you about this since we started. I mean, you know, you know the evolution it's gone on. So
no, and it's been a very exciting process. I mean, I remember when we first talked about it, and you were saying about you had the idea and what you were looking to do, and it was just like, wow, this has the potential to be amazing. So it's very exciting to see the entire progression that took place since we initially spoke about it last year, and then all the details that have been happening along the way, through that process. So it's much appreciated, but it's also, it is an amazing process and to see, and it's come such a long way in such a short period of time. And it's been months, but for everything to happen the way it's been, it's pretty incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, it's good. It's been an interesting journey, to say the least, but we feel good about it. So yeah. So,
and then in regards to and one thing I wanted to touch back, and then I'll come back to this, is the folks that you're going to be talking to in regards to this. Now, we mentioned you were talking about Brian Johnson, obviously, who was the special effects director for Space 1999, and obviously was an integral part of the Eagle, his creation. And then also Nick Tate is on board with this as well. And
you also don't have your graphic again.
It can go again. I'm sorry.
Hold
on one second.
I'm here to give you technical support.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually, it's funny when I'm sharing it, I'm actually it's showing, but it's not coming through. This should do it. How's that?
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to say to everybody who's on, I don't think it didn't take again. Okay. One thing I want to say to everyone watching this is that we are going to have a world premiere exclusive that'll go out next week around the 8th on space.com, where you'll get to see the preview of the documentary and the Kickstarter, which is really cool. And it literally, Nick Tate's part of it, and there's some cool stuff, you know. So you guys got to be the first people in the world to get to see the Eagle effect shots we did, which is cool. But that piece will come out and it'll debut, and it's gonna, I think there's something we pulled off in there that Roy's seen it. It's pretty magical what we were able to do. It kind of take you back 50 years. So yeah,
it really is. So definitely stay tuned for that.
But to back you up on this, Kevin J. Anderson's also in it, who is a noted author who did a bunch of, he's written probably 17, 18, maybe 20 Dune books,
right?
With Brian Herbert, and he's also a big Space 1999 fan. So we were able to hang out in Colorado where he lives and talk a lot about the Eagle and its cultural impact, and also his view as a child. He grew up in Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin, and he, as a child, he really it was Space 1999 that gave him a vision of the future he wanted to live in, getting out and away from his community where he grew up and everything. So it's a very personal thing for him too, and everything. So we got to talk about that, which is cool. So and then we went to Wonderfest and we shot there, which was fun. And the Space 1999 props and ships guys who did an amazing job. And previous to that, we kind of had our pre-shoot in Calgary to kind of get a sense of what this whole thing would be like and everything. But we're going to be going back to Calgary and doing something much bigger. So, yep.
No, both those experiences were incredible, and it's an incredible time, and it's a wonderful time, and to see the focus on this iconic spaceship is in itself is very amazing. Bob Mack just commented. He said, "I'm sure that many of us, myself included, would be happy to help with funding. I'll eagerly await the Kickstarter launch. Have you thought that might generate interest in some sort of reboot or relaunch of the show?"
Well, it's very interesting. many people in fandom know that I have pitched a couple of times. It was very public. I actually shared my pitch that I did in 2018 with everyone that I pitched to ITV and got really close. And I did another pitch. I think it was a 2021. We had that was at 20 or 22. When was? Remember that was fall of one of the last 2 years we did that.
I think that was 20. Actually, I think it was 21.
21. It was fall of 21.
Yeah.
And we pitched. And again, he got even closer. But I'm hearing now that it's getting really weird that the license, they're actually planning to not do any sort of reboot. ITV's had a lot of trouble with their reboots. If you think they tried to do The Prisoner, which did not go over well. I heard they had a pitch for UFO that they actually put together a big pitch around it, and no one wanted it. No one was interested. They did Cowboy Bebop, which was a big flop. Didn't go well. So I think they're smarting from some of that stuff, and it's a lot of money. This is really expensive, and I think when you look at it, Space 1999 is something that it's such a. Well, first off, they weren't making a show thinking we're going to reboot this someday. So when you title a show Space 1999, you kind of have up until 1999 to reboot that, in a way, And so they told me straight up, we are not doing a show called Space 2099. Not going to happen. We don't want to do time travel, which was part of my story. We don't want to, and they also said, we're not preoccupied with the moon being blasted out of orbit. We want stories about the characters, and we're just not there. And I think from what I heard today, I talked to an insider who said that the regime change and the situations there, probably not going to be getting any reboot of Space 1999. So, sad to say, but here's what I will tell everybody is I believe I can use the attention. I have an idea that I've been developing for about 2 years about people living on the moon in the 21st century. And I actually have developed even a vehicle that's similar. It doesn't look exactly like an eagle, but it's something we call a bullfrog in the story. That's pretty cool that they use to hop around the moon. And I think I might be able to figure out how to do a show that has a lot of the bells and whistles and cool things that we loved about Space 1999, but doing it with a new property, a new IP. And that's probably where we're going to go with this. And this is the first time I've ever talked about it publicly, but that's where I'm thinking is instead of putting my energy into a Space 1999 reboot, which again, something I think is really important that a lot of people have to take into account and put this out into the world. The idea, think about this, when you're making a reboot of a show, you have to go, think about it, like an episode of TV right now, the average episode of a show like this would probably be between $5 and $10 million, maybe even more, right? Their TV shows out there, they spent, I think it was Lord of the Rings, they spent like $100 million an episode on that. It was $1 billion for 10 episodes. So you say to somebody, we're going to make this TV series Space 1999, they would think, okay, we've got to build these sets and visual effects. And obviously, in order to justify that, you'd have to get big name stars. They're going to cost you a lot of money. So you're probably talking about something that's in the 10 million or more an episode for season, right? So then to justify that, they'd say to themselves, what's the potential audience? So when you look at the potential audience, you say, well, there are people who watched the show in 1975, 76, 77, right? Whatever, right? And they think, okay, that's an audience, but how many of those people are there? Because in order for us to justify this, there have to be a lot more people than that group of folks that want to watch this. So how do we sell a name like Space 1999 to a new generation and get them excited and have millions of people want to watch this? That's a huge dilemma. And I can understand the challenge that they're going through with that. So one time, one of the execs there said to me one time, she said, I feel like we can't please anyone. There's no pleasing the old fans. It would be very hard to please new fans. How do you please both? So having taken a run at it a couple of times and I have a third potential run at it that I still might do. I think it might be better to just come up with something new that actually has elements that we could get excited about. It could be really fun. It could be really fun to do that and liberating. I do think there could be some Space 1999 licensed products that we come up with, though, that could be new material. that we're talking about as well. So we're going to be getting into those conversations with, ITV and Anderson over the coming weeks and months. So that are going to come out of this documentary potentially. So
that in itself is pretty cool. So
that's
stay tuned.
cool. Yeah. But a reboot of the show, very hard to sell at this point.
Yeah. So much time has gone by. And to your point too, about pleasing everybody, it's almost impossible, because whether it's the old fans or the new fans, there really doesn't seem to be a lot of middle ground. And and the fact, they're against 2099, and I know that there's been ideas about that. And again, 1999, it's almost 25 years ago already, which is crazy.
Exactly.
So it's unless there's something that you can work into to allow it to happen.
Well, the final pitch idea I have, right? And that would work. It would work. And I think it could be really, really, really cool. But the question is, we're still talking about Hollywood executives that have to be convinced, right? Like either ITV has to spend the money, or ITV has to convince Netflix or Amazon or someone else to spend the money. And when we were talking about a minimum of $100 to probably $150 million, that's a heck of a gamble.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And so, it's like, how do you do that? It's like a risk that I don't know if they want to take. So I think that's where we are. So,
it's crazy too, Jeffrey, is I remember back when I was a Battlestar fan, Battlestar Galactica back in '78 when it was on. And I remember, they were saying that those episodes were $1 million an episode, and that was a lot of money back then.
Well, think about it. Think about two of those things that we loved, right? So Space 1999 was the most expensive TV series ever made at its time.
Right.
And then Battlestar Galactica was the most expensive TV series ever made at its time, right? And everything. So it's really interesting. But the economics of this, you can't keep doing that. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. And it's not an IP that, even though we know and love it and everything, it's not something that's there are people, if you get out kind of out of the silo of all of us who know this and love it, there are a lot of folks who've never heard of it. It's some obscure show that had 2 seasons 40 something years ago. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get it. It's a hard economic decision to decide to reboot that. So
essentially it's a big risk, is what
it's a huge risk. It's a huge risk, Yeah. And you also think about it, if you're one of the executives who does it and then it fails.
Right.
That's you know what I mean? So it's
not an executive anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to have a candid conversation about that. I thought maybe your fans would find that interesting. So I literally had a conversation about the reboot of it this morning, literally this morning. So,
fingers crossed that something positive, comes out.
I think there could be some cool stuff that will happen. That could be something that people could. There are aspects of this documentary that we're planning to do that I know fans will love. That are things that are just even beyond the documentary itself. There's some mini documentaries we're going to create. And so there's going to be some opportunity for some really neat stuff here that I think fans will be able to. This will be the first time in 50 years there'll be some cool stuff.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. So that's one thing that's really, really cool.
So in that sense, I mean, it's really retro because it's giving attention to this, and it's the Eagle.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what I'd like to do is learn from this experience and then go create something new that the audience will go, wow. So there is a project I've been slowly kind of developing for the past couple of years that could fill that space that's on the moon. It doesn't leave orbit though.
Okay.
So, yeah.
No, that in itself is cool. And you've got other projects that you've worked on. I mean, Persephone and Oceanus. I mean, and Parallel, man. I mean, all of those, are amazing, and they're out there. Whether you're watching parts of it, just it's on YouTube, and your numbers in regards to the folks tuning into that were incredible. And I mean, when we were watching Persephone, I was just like waiting for more. I mean, that was my biggest, regret. It's like it ended. It's like I wanted to see more. I wanted to see where that was going to go. So
I really appreciate it. All these projects so far, I've been able to. I've been tremendously lucky to have some investors who believe in me, who've been willing to work with me and help me bring my vision to life. But the thing is, when you make a short film, that's not enough to be the thing, right? We made that at a time where we were thinking, okay, we make these short films and I put my all in, I show what I can do as a director, some studio or someone's going to come along and go, this is awesome. Now here's the rest of your money. Go make this thing into something big. And it just doesn't work like that. It's not just me. I know other filmmakers who have gone down that path and it didn't materialize. The industry, there's an upheaval that's happening, which is part of why you have these strikes going on right now and everything. This is an industry where it's very, very difficult to get new intellectual properties made. So I come up with something like Persephone. They're like, well, what was Persephone? What was Persephone? Was it a book series that was popular? Was it a video game? Was it a toy? Right? What was that? No, it's this new idea with blah, 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 blah. And they're like, yeah, okay, who's in it? And you go, well, I've got these actors, and like, those are good actors, but you know, they're not gonna raise $100 million in the opening weekend, so we're not gonna finance it. And that's what we've been up against, and that's part of why I'm just gonna go down this Kickstarter path and make my own stuff and start making things independently and working with fans and working together with people, because there are people around the world that like the material we're creating. They believe in us, they believe in me as a director, and I want to bring those people together and start creating content for them, so we can keep those stories going. Because I do believe there's space in the world for the kind of stories I want to tell, you know. But getting Hollywood to tell those stories, you know, that you look at it, you got Barbie's popular because it was Barbie, right? That's why they greenlit it. And they almost struggled to greenlight that. And then they did it, and it's going to make $1 billion. Now they're going to make a major Matt Mason movie, you know, because it was a toy.
Yeah.
You know, right? So it's like the idea of coming up with a new idea, something new. You know, I've thought about in terms of Oceanus that you like. Sometimes like, man, maybe should I just go get the rights to Man from Atlantis and rename? You know what I mean? Like, because then they go, oh well, Man from Atlantis, that happened. We saw that before. Make new Sequest or something. I don't know. You know, it's like, you know, so it's really, really a challenge. There's not a lot of creative thinking or open-mindedness. It's very much about the bottom line, and it's very driven by accountants. You know, so yeah, that's why we don't have a Space 1999 reboot. So
yeah, and the frustration level too. I mean, you know, I do realize, you know, visual effects and everything is very, very expensive, but to tell a story does not necessarily have to be expensive, and that's what's so frustrating.
Oh, I know the budgets for the stuff. I mean, you've seen what I've been pulling off for budgets that are way lower than it's about the creativity. It's about, you know, what is it? What are the tools you have? What's the creativity? What's the competencies of the team? I mean, there are all kinds of bad movies being made right now that they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on.
Exactly.
You know, that doesn't make the movie good just because you throw hundreds of millions of dollars at it. You know, and I hear all the time now about producers who I talk to visual effects teams and different folks, and I consistently hear stories about how these movies that we're seeing that are on the big street, Marvel films, other films, huge budgets, they don't have a plan. They literally don't even have a locked script. So then they kind of deviate, and then they start shooting something. Then they go, yeah, you know, maybe today we should try this, and they just keep throwing money at it. And that's why, if you think about a lot of these films, when you watch them, they don't feel cohesive like a single creative vision, because it's all been just sort of, you know, thrown together and everything. And they just throw money at it because it's a famous IP.
Yep.
And it's intellectual property that was well known, so they can do that, and they know people are going to come out. You know, so
yeah, I won't say it because I pretty much was not going in that direction. But there's a movie that just came out that was it came out originally 42 years ago, and I was so disappointed. I mean, it was better than the one that was out 15 years ago, but I just wish that it had ended in 1989, and you know, they went off into the sunset, and it's a shame. And it you know, and I love the, you know, the actors that were in it, and I you know, I respect them and everything, but I just think, as far as when I left that movie theater seeing that film, I pretty much was depressed as a result of seeing it. And you know, and if Ross was here, he would really probably go off more than I'm going off about it. But
well, I feel that kind of things happen with several franchises without naming any of them, you know, where it's like, I mean, almost every franchise that I loved, or aspects of it that I loved, at this point, it's kind of like, whoa, you know, what they did with them. It's like, why didn't we just like I've literally started saying to people, it's like, I'll just watch the old stuff. If I really want to see it, I'll just watch the old one. I don't need to do this to my brain. I don't need to. Yeah, there's no point, you know.
It's so frustrating, and that's you know, hearing what you're saying too. It's like, okay, well, until we get it right, we're just going to keep throwing money, and it's just like, then there's stuff that could be made that would be so good. And
well, it's not
in
just
your
me.
hands.
It's not just me. I know other filmmakers who have brilliant IPs, intellectual properties that they've created, especially in the sci-fi realm, and they cannot get a studio to even give them a chance. And these are people who have actually proven themselves. They've made, one of my friends actually made a very, very popular series that was on Dust. It was picked up eventually on Dust, and it's almost feature length. And he was like, he ended up with a Hollywood agent. He went around and did what he calls the free water tour, where you go to studios and they would you like some water, and you get your water and you pitch your thing, and then they go, thank you very much. And it never got picked up. And this is something that has millions of hits, millions of views. And he can't get a studio to pick it up because it's an original idea.
Right.
It's so frustrating. So I think that what's going to start to happen is those of us, especially those like myself, who can make things cost effectively, we have to find a way to do it ourselves. And the only way to do that is to bring together people like yourself and fans who are going to believe in us, who can see that we're going to deliver, we're going to pull it off. I care about this. I want to make good content, but I'm going to need people's help to do it. I'm going to need help to do it because I'm not going to get it from the studio, and unfortunately I mean, we could try to hit the lottery, but the odds are pretty low. So it's, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, it's, I appreciate the openness, and I'm sure that everybody out there is as well too. The comments are coming in.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some comments. It's just,
yeah. Warren says hi. He had a break. He jumped in. Nancy's joining us from Canada. She's
hi, Nancy.
Bob is commenting. Totally get all of that, Jeffrey. Your idea for a new show is very exciting. Also, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to give away, Bob. I don't want to give away like what I want to do with it. But let's just say this: that the idea that if you could imagine being 10, 15, 20 years from now, and we're on the moon, and we have an infrastructure, and we have resources, and there's some interesting back and forth going on. It's very realistic. Maybe there's some international conflicts going on over some of the resources up there. People are trying to find their way as they have these different moon colonies and bases that are starting to happen. But then something is thrown into the mix, which it throws it all into chaos. And then it becomes a sort of a thing of like, well, what do we do now that this thing is here? Do we keep it to ourselves? Do we share it? Do we not talk about it? It's a scientific dilemma that happens, but this scientific dilemma has massive ramifications, not just for the people who are there, but also for the entire history of humanity. This thing, and it's not it's not like 2001, but it's there's something that they find out that's pretty interesting. And so if I can do this show, I think it could be really, really. It almost has I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like, it's almost like Space 1999 meets Jurassic Park in a way. And then, it's sort of got some things going on like that. So it's pretty cool. And it would have room for a lot of cool technology and cool vehicles and characters and that sort of thing. So, and I like you, I grew, one of the things that I want to get back to is having heroes who have their stuff together. I miss that, man. It's like, you think about it back in the 70s and even the 80s, when you had like these sci-fi characters and stuff. They were awesome. They were cool. It wasn't so much about everybody. This guy's got a drinking problem. This one's a, an addict over this part, this person's violent, or it's more like, it was like, these are cool people who actually are the best of the best. And now we're going to go and pit them against something.
Yeah.
What are they going to do now that they have to face this bad thing? What will that ruin their best of the bestness? That kind of thing. I think there's a huge room for that kind of storytelling. And that's another one in Hollywood. It's just not about that now. Everything's about dysfunction, and it's about showing people with problems and showing, and drama. And I'm not saying that I don't want to have drama. That's what I'm saying. But I think you can have action adventures that are scientifically based in a way with really cool characters that you want to see as a role model, as opposed to somebody that you look at and go, man, that guy's a mess, And that's what I feel like when I watch a lot of this stuff now.
Well, that's just it. It's like a lot of the characters now, and these could be heroes or were heroes. It's like they're very dark. there's a lot of, and I get, we're human, and things come up and everything, but
I'm not saying that they have to be perfect,
right. But
Yeah.
it's just that it's to the level that it's not just minor imperfections, or everybody's
No.
got their thing.
So these are actual
It's like,
psychological dysfunctions where they're,
yeah,
like it's just like, it's this person's they're in command of the mission, but they're a raging alcoholic. It's like, it's like, okay, because will his alcoholism destroy the mission? It's like, come on, it's like, to me, it just seems like a lack of creativity in a way, right? And I think because the thing is, yes, there were flaws, absolutely. The Apollo astronauts, Gemini, Mercury pilots, they had, they were human, okay,
right.
but they weren't like this massively dysfunctional you couldn't put them up there. You wouldn't. They were these brilliant, smart test pilots who trained, and they knew what they were doing, and they, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, they never would have made the mission. They never would have gotten that
they
far.
never would have gotten
beyond
that
the
far.
mission.
They would
Yeah.
never. And I would love to tell stories about people who actually are the best and the brightest. These are people who actually fought to get there because they trained and they used their minds, and they deserve to be there. And it's not just somebody who's like, yeah, well, we got to get this guy because he's the best pilot. I know, sir, but he's got a drug problem. It's like it just gets old. It just gets old, and I'm tired of it. I want to see, like when I think about Battlestar and I think about Starbuck and Apollo and Boomer, that trio.
Yeah.
Starbuck was a womanizer, sure. And it was charming and it was funny, and Apollo was a little bit too much of a goody two shoes for me, a little bit in a way. Right. And
It was the combination of the two characters.
Right. There was a combination of those two characters, but at the end of the day, they both were really good pilots. Yeah.
I've actually gone back and I have rewatched the show, and I'll do this like every couple of years. You know what I mean? And you just get to the point. And like you said, I mean, I don't watch a lot of the new stuff. I mean, the newest stuff I have watched has been Star Trek, and obviously with Star Trek Picard, I mean, my feelings about seasons 1 and 2. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of both.
They don't
of those
exist
seasons.
for me, but
yeah. And then season 3, I totally got into.
Season 3 still had some elements of modern contemporary storytelling that I could have done without, but generally speaking, it was the best Star Trek has been in decades. Yeah, absolutely. It still felt, at least it felt like Star Trek.
I mean, I was looking forward to watching.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like Star Trek. It actually.
And then I would even go back and rewatch the episodes, and I have not done that. And I can't even tell you. I mean, the old stuff I can rewatch. I can watch Space 1999, Star Trek, Lost in Space. I mean, God help me with some of the Lost in Space episodes, but with Galactica, rewatching those, and it holds up. There's stories that are weaker than others, but there's something about the storytelling that it works, and it's a shame that Hollywood or the studios, who the powers that be, can't acknowledge that and feel that it has to go in a certain direction now.
One series I'll shout out to. One series I'll shout out to that's a modern series that I think is really good is The Expanse. I think The Expanse is the best sci-fi series of this decade.
Wow.
Because it just it's really good storytelling, really great characters, really believable, really well executed. It's a fantastic show. It's great. It's really, really great. I think they kind of rushed it at the end, but generally speaking, it was really awesome. It's really good. It's good storytelling, and they get the physics really, really right. It's very cool. It's not like there's nothing right now that's good, but for me, it's been really hard watching. I actually, like something like Star Trek Discovery, I just gave up. I just couldn't even. I just think they should call it Space Voyage, and just make a new show that's called Space Voyage that has that stuff in it. I don't know why you have to call it Star Trek. It's like, make it something else, But that's just me, It's no, and the thing that really frustrates me is when people say things like, you're just being closed-minded because you just like the old stuff and you're stuck in the past. And it's like, no, actually, I had friends who were naysaying Next Generation. I was like, bring it on. This is awesome. I think this is great. I want to see this. And I watched it from day one, and I was open-minded about it. I never put it down. I like Deep Space Nine. I never put that down. To me, it has to do with the quality of how they're approaching it and the type of storytelling and what's going on. And I just don't think that modern Star Trek since 2009 embodies the kind of storytelling and the quality of what we had going on in the previous decades. I just don't think it does. I don't think the people behind it get it. I don't think they really get what the first off, one thing, I think Star Trek was not right to go to the big screen in a way. I think that, so this idea that you have to have a big villain every week, every movie, right? A scene chewing villain every movie, it gets hard. It gets hard to do that. And Star Trek wasn't really about that all the time. It was about ideas and about, the search, moral dilemmas and character stuff like that. That's not a big screen thing.
Right.
So it's almost like this big screen trajectory that Star Trek went on. It's almost like that bled into the TV shows. Does that make sense? You gotta have this big villain and this big, and sometimes storytelling should be subtle. Sometimes it's, when I think about some of the great shows that have been on in the last 2 decades, things like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, or one other one I really love, Better Call Saul. Great. These are great shows, but these are character-driven stories, and so I think, wouldn't it be cool to see that in the sci-fi context? And everything.
Well, that's just it, though. With episodic, these shows, I mean, those stories are meant to be episodic. And to your point, when you're trying to put something into a 2.5-2-hour movie, now it's sometimes even 2.5 hours, you're only allowed so much time to give, X amount of, if you have an ensemble cast, not everybody's going to probably get the attention that they deserve. No. There's only so many points that you can really touch upon. Right. And it's going to be the focus if you have a threat, if it's a villain, or what the conflict is, and it's trying to resolve that. So it's like you have this entire buildup to that one item. Whereas if it's a television series, like again, the original series, I mean, you have 79 episodes. So there's a lot that can be told. There's a lot that can be done through those 79 episodes.
That's right.
As opposed to one movie that's only two.
Well, and now we've got a whole TV season. It's 6 episodes. It's right? I mean, it's like, well, what can you do with that? 10 episodes, 6 episodes, that kind of thing. So it's just a different world. It's just a different world. So.
No, it really is. And I mean, I have a few friends that say to me, Roy, bring yourself up to speed, because I tend to watch, it's the 60s, the 70s, and pretty much the 80s. And to your point, I know there's some stuff out there.
No,
Warren, I was just talking to him
as I told you, I think the first 2.5 seasons of the Battlestar reboot, absolutely worth watching. I think it's some of the best television ever. It really takes a little bit to get going. Like the pilot, I could understand why you might have watched the pilot and been like, what is this? Right.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. But once you get into like the very, very first episode of that series, it's called 33. It's awesome. It's just fantastic. And it's like a roller coaster, and it's so emotional. They cram more character development and storytelling in a single hour of that episode than some shows could do in a season in that Galactica series. So I highly recommend it. It gets what I call it kind of collapses under the weight of its own mythology by the time you get into the 3rd season. And the 3rd and 4th seasons, it gets kind of, but you could watch the first 2.5 and have a really satisfying experience as you're watching a good TV show. I don't know if you watch Firefly. Firefly is absolutely brilliant. That's a great series.
I haven't seen Firefly. I have a lot of people that told me that too.
Yeah. So there are things that have been made that I think are worth your time. I think The Expanse is worth your time. Firefly is worth your time. BSG is worth your time. I think I don't know if we talked about Stargate, but like there's one Stargate series. I didn't follow a lot of Stargate, but the Stargate universe for me was a show I really dug. I thought that was a really cool show. I wish that it kept going, and everything. So there's some shows out there that are good. I'm really bummed about Star Trek, and I just don't talk about it anymore. That's kind of where I am. It's like I don't want anybody who like loves something and feels good about it. I don't want them to feel like I'm putting down the thing that they love. People should get to love what they love, and that's cool. That's all cool. But I've kind of just said I'm going to stop talking about it. So. But I'm talking to you about it because you're my friend. No,
I appreciate that. And that's the way I am. I mean, I whatever somebody likes, I'm not going to, say, well, you shouldn't like it because I don't. I mean,
no.
That's just.
But I'm just kind of moving on. It's got it's like, and my edict right now is go create the things you want to see instead of complaining about it. I'm going to go make the stuff I want to see. So, yeah.
Lewis just commented. He said, "Roy, you have to watch Firefly." So, and
yeah, you do.
Sue is saying 33 on the reboot of Battlestar Galactica is mind-blowing episode.
Yeah.
Warren and I were just talking last night, and he was saying about The Expanse. He said, "Roy, you got to check that out." So you reinforced that tremendously.
And I will tell you, The Expanse. Yes, Warren, you're absolutely right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. Both of those series can appeal to people who don't like sci-fi. That's the thing that's also I find really fascinating is that like I knew lots of women who never liked sci-fi at all who watched Battlestar Galactica thought it was great.
Well, you were telling me about that when we talked the other week, because you were saying they dealt with the issues, but you don't have the aliens and everything.
Right.
You
No, see, one of the things that a lot of sci-fi fans I don't think understand is that to outsiders, when you see somebody with blue skin and latex on their forehead or whatever it is, there are a lot of people who see that from the outside and they're like, what is that? They're like, right. It just looks silly. They don't get it. It's like Galaxy Quest or something. You know, it's like it doesn't make a lot of sense. And so I get that. I understand that. I understand why. And you know, it's because the truth of it is we don't live in a world where we're running into people with blue skin and right. You know what I mean? I mean, according to some folks we are, but hey, most of us don't run into that, right? So, you know, it's so I think that but the idea of telling, if you think about it, literally us being on this video conference talking right now and having people from different parts of the world listening to us, that's science fiction at some point in the past.
Yes, absolutely.
Think about that, right?
Good point.
Right, you know,
great point.
That was science fiction at some point in the past. So, you know, it's science fiction in its true sense, the term science fiction, it's based on science. It's the idea of taking science and plausibility and then extrapolating. That's, you know, what's going on. And you can have all kinds of different types of science fiction stories and everything. But something like Star Wars, I think people don't really get that it's space fantasy.
Right.
It's a fantasy. Space 1999 ultimately is a space fantasy, right? It's a fantasy. It just happens to have some of these elements that felt very potentially scientifically plausible in it, right? That was the part that was so interesting about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and with you were talking about with Breakaway or the first episode, it really felt like it was an operational moon base. You really felt that it really could be happening, it could work, and it was manned, it was operational, and it was functional. It had that element.
And they had bell bottoms.
And they had bell bottoms.
And that was, you know, really important. So any more comments? I don't know if there are any comments or questions or anything.
No, they were just commenting about the just some of the stuff that we were talking about in regards to let's see. Lewis said, "Oh God, dysfunctional is trendy. The trauma troop."
Yeah.
Dennis, welcome. I'm sorry I didn't get to say hi to you earlier. Dennis Chevalier is joining us from Canada. He said,
well, the major Matt Mason, Dennis, they were talking about that, for years, but it's because of Barbie, they're finally green lighting it. So,
yeah. How much do you want to make a bet there's going to be a Barbie 2 coming out?
Oh, of course there will be.
Yeah, it's
well, see that you're right, Lewis. See, that's the thing I think too. It's like I'm like, you couldn't be there in command of the base if you were a raging alcoholic. It wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. They couldn't let you be there. You're jeopardizing lives, you know. Now here's one thing I could imagine is telling a story about how somebody who had it together got up there, and then the pressure of being up there led them to be an alcoholic.
Right.
I think that's something worth exploring because that's real life. That feels, but to start off with, like, it feels like these writers like, you know, we got to create somebody interesting here. What do we do? Well, this guy, he's got a problem with, like, you know, he has an eating disorder and he just, it's like, you know,
he's off the deep end.
Yeah. He just goes off the deep end and he can't control himself. Let's start there. It's like, well, yeah, you know, like one of the things that's missing, and this is the last thing I want to say about this, is that something that I also feel that's missing from that time is that we had role models back in the 60s and 70s who were worthy of looking up to, right? If you think about it, what it was like to have a JFK or a Martin Luther King or, you know, or a Jonas Salk or, you know, I mean, on and on and on. You know, these were people who were worth emulating and looking up to, you know, and it's and I think that if you look at media back then, there were characters that people could look up to and go, I'd like to be like that person when I grow up, or I'd like to emulate more like that. You know, I it's really disappointing me when I see the modern depictions of Captain Kirk, because sure. I mean, I guess he did some sleeping around, but come on, it wasn't anything like, you know, like in the Star Trek 2009, where some, you know, some young women walk by and he's like, "Hello, ladies." You know, it's like,
Yeah.
come on, that wasn't Kirk. You know
No.
what I mean? It's like this guy, he was awesome, and he was his charismatic, and he was powerful, and he was a great leader. And yeah, sometimes he would you know, get some. you know, you know, but I mean, come on. I mean, what do you want a guy to do? You know, it's like, but it's not the same as like, you know, him being this. It wasn't like that was who he was and what he was all about.
Right.
You know, not even close. Not even close. You know.
And I think that part of the problem is it's the time that we're in right now. It's almost
Mhm.
like they don't know how to handle that type of storytelling. That's
Mm-mm.
and
You know, I'm
that's
going to tell you something. Sometimes I look at these shows and I'm like, what's wrong with this writer?
yeah.
You know. Well, now I'm not talking about James Bond.
Captain Kirk Allen Carter.
Yeah. No, James Bond. But James Bond, that was part of what the character was all about. But he certainly none of it was to the point that it made him dysfunctional. Does that make sense? It was like it was part of the nature
part of who he was and what he
part
did.
of who he was, right? Yeah. Exactly. And it also, by the way, that's part of the James Bond brand. That was just part of the brand. You just knew that that's what you were going to get. It's who he was, you know.
Yeah.
But and I'm not. It is what it is. And I also feel like there's way too much like oversensitivity even about some of that kind of stuff now too. It's like, you know, come on, it's just a story. It's storytelling, you know.
Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, the times is it's there's so much of an influence. It's gone. There's no balance anymore. It's either it's on this, you know, it's over here or it's over here, but there's no nothing in the middle. It's everything is an extreme, unfortunately.
Right.
And that's unfortunately where we're at. Sue commented, Roy, can you ask Jeffrey what he thinks of TV series, not the movie Alienation? It was very character driven. I remember feeling that I could easily walk out of my house and walk among the newcomers in the grocery store. It was very real.
No, that was a good show. That was a well made, well written show for sure. It was well rounded. Yeah. I agree.
Before we wind down though, Jeffrey, was there anything else you wanted to share about the
No, I just want everybody to know. I know we've talked a lot, but I really can use your help when we do this this Kickstarter. I want to get this thing done because I also think that not only will it let me make a fantastic documentary that you guys have got a sense of what I want to do and you've seen a little bit of it from some of the visuals, but I also think that this could become a linchpin to really launch all the other IPs that I'm trying to get going and really get this machine finally going to where I want, where I can show the world what I'm trying to do and who I am as a creative, you know. So I really appreciate everybody's time and attention and interest, and I really hope you'll not only support us, but, you know, share it with your friends and family, and we'll get this thing funded and get it off the ground and blow it up, turn it into something really big and really cool. So.
Yeah, get the word out.
Yeah.
Now the website, Sue's asking if the website is not.
The website will be live next week, at the end of next week. And so if you would do me a favor, when you do your show next week, let's do an announcement of all that stuff. We'll have the Kickstarter page should be coming on, and we should be able to have the Kickstarter website. Well, it's actually not the Kickstarter website. It's actually the website for the Eagles Landed. So that for the documentary. So that it's a super cool. You've seen it. It's a cool website. And so we just got to finish it up. We'll have it out next week. And so I'd like to, even if you want me to come back for a minute or whatever it is, or you want to announce it next week, let's go back to this group and show them everything that, you know, real quick. Go.
Yeah, definitely.
This is the stuff, and, you know, So it's an ongoing thing. It's a dialogue, you know. So
yeah, we'll definitely keep the momentum going on this. Darren's asking, will there be various levels for contributors?
Absolutely, tons. I mean, obviously, with something like this, absolutely, Lewis. You know, the thing is that there's a way that you can just contribute anything with any of this stuff, right? But we will have levels that go all the way up to, if I'm correct, I think we have something goes all the way to $10,000 with this. We have, you know, where you can have dinner with Nick Tate or with Brian Johnson and things like that. You know, we're going to have all kinds of levels with this thing. And we're also in talks with MPC Round 2 about even doing an exclusive Eagle for this. That would be given away as part of this whole thing and stuff too, like a 22-inch Eagle that could be a specific kit that's very specific to this production. So we're working on that too. There's some really cool stuff we're working on. So that'll all be coming out in the next week or two. We'll have it, but I think by next week we should be pretty good to reveal everything. So, but this is kind of the first time talking about it and everything. So we appreciate everybody's patience and, you know, just bear with us as we roll this out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, we'll keep everybody informed, and there's going to be a lot of information coming from a lot of individuals. So this is really, really good. I'm just going to go to the shout outs. So, no, I just want to say thank you so much, Jeffrey, for being a part of the show and everything. It's
Absolutely.
always a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Did you want to hang on and I'll come?
Yeah, I can hang on. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. I'm going to just go to the shout outs real quick, folks. If you have any last minute questions, if you just want to pose them, and then I will come back and review them, and then we'll just talk to Jeffrey for a moment then with that. So let me just go to the shout out portion. Jeffrey, you can let me know. Are you able to see the screen? I just want to make sure it's not just the star field. Which
I see the spinning ball of death, and now I see a star field.
So. Let me try it one more time. Okay, hang on one second. Okay, I'm seeing it. Are you seeing it now?
Nope.
It's interesting. Maybe try it one more time. Okay, let's see if that does it. No go?
No. Oh, there. Now we got something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Must be like a delay. All right. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So, yes. So I just want to give a shout out to friends Mike and Mary Beth for Sci-Fi Distilled. They cover science fiction shows of the 80s, 90s, and beyond, television and movies. They are actually on a break. They are on vacation for the next 2 weeks, and then they're going to be up in Ticonderoga for Trek-Conderoga, which is going to be the weekend right before the 23rd. So they will be back Wednesday, August 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. They broadcast on Facebook as well as YouTube. Check them out, and they will announce what they're going to be covering in about 2 weeks. So just stay tuned in regards to that. I also want to give a shout out to our friend Todd Morton that's out there. Todd and Gordon do Todd's Corner, and he is going to be on with Gordon this Sunday, and that will be August 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And their next upcoming show, Jeffrey, you're going to be guesting on that show as well with them.
I am.
And talking about the Kickstarter and everything in regards to the documentary. So definitely check out Todd's Corner and for more information. And that will be this Sunday, August 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then also I want to give a shout out to the Country Gate Theater. Country Gate is back, and they are actually doing even tonight Snoopy. Now, Country Gate, as folks know, is within my area and Sherry's area. And if you are in the Belvedere, Harmony, New Jersey area, and you have the opportunity, definitely check them out. This is going to be the last weekend they will be doing Snoopy. This is the second show of the season. The show is going to be tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And they're also doing a 1 o'clock matinee. And I believe there will be a 1 o'clock matinee on Sunday. For information regarding the show, you can go to the website, which is www.countrygate.org, or you can visit Bill's website, which is www.billscarrato.com. And next, I want to give Captain Phil from Captain Phil's Planet a shout out. WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New York is the captain's station. And his schedule is on alternating Thursdays from 3 to 5 p.m. And he's also on Friday nights from 9 to 11:30 p.m. And then also just want to give a shout out to Snow and Martha. They put up their website about a year ago, and they've been doing online. This is for Studio One Thrift. They're the owners. They showcase their lineup for all seasons, all year long, of quality, stylish, affordable clothing for men and women. You can receive styling tips and informational updates. All you have to do is register on their website, which is www.studio1thrift.net. And again, be sure to subscribe for their updates. In regards to Trek-Conderoga this is actually going to be I believe the 9th year, but it's really the 8th Trek-Conderoga because it originated in 2015. Unfortunately, there was not one because of COVID. This year, attending is going to be Jonathan Frakes, John Delancey, and Brent Spiner. The dates are August 18th, 19th, and 20th. For information regarding Condoroga, you can go to www.startrektour.com. Now, the strike is in effect, which is going on. So just be aware, there might be some limitations on what they can discuss, but they will be there, and definitely check out the website. And in regards to the Star Trek set tour, I just want to give a shout out. I was actually had the opportunity to be up there with my friend Lou and then Steve just recently. So if you've never been to the set tour, you definitely want to check it out. And they offer different types of tours. And Jeffrey, you and I have definitely got to get up there.
Yeah, I want to try to figure it out. Actually, we should talk about it. I actually think it might be a fun thing to. Yeah, let's talk about it. We'll talk about it offline.
Yeah, definitely. It's just amazing, the sets, and the newest set that they're working on is auxiliary control. James just announced that they're going to be opening that shortly. So I just wanted to post a couple of photos. It's definitely a good time if you've never been up there. So definitely, again, check it out. And also, in regards to the Long Island Doctor Who convention that's taking place, it is in Long Island. It is taking place the same weekend, which is Friday, August 18th, 19th, and 20th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had originally announced that Catherine Schell was supposed to be at the convention. Unfortunately, she's had to cancel, but it is going to be the 60th anniversary, which is crazy to think that Doctor Who's 60 years old, but that's going to be going on, and it's going to be a pretty awesome convention as well. So definitely check it out. In regards to website information, you can go to www.longislanddoctorwho.com. And unfortunately, my friend and co-host Ross Amico was unable to be here tonight. He's actually on holiday for today. And he has actually changed the information in regards to where he's broadcasting. So if you go to his Facebook page, which is Classic Ross Amico, it has the information in regards to the updates of when he's broadcasting, and you can find out about his schedule. So definitely check it out. As folks know, Ross is an amazing knowledge of information, especially when it comes to classical music. So definitely check out his Facebook page. And again, it's classicrossamico.com. And then lastly, stay tuned, folks. Episode 199B will be coming up, and we will give you updates when that will be. Probably be doing something next Friday. I'm not sure if Ross will be on. He might be away. So I will be posting during the week just to let everybody know what we will be talking about. And again, of course, giving updates in regards to the Kickstarter and the documentary information. So stay tuned in regards to that as well.
Cool.
So let me just see here some information, just checking the, see what's come through. Sue said to make sure to thank you, Jeffrey.
Oh, sure.
And Dennis Chevalier said very exciting with everything. Let me see here. And Lewis is asking how Persephone is coming along.
It's we're going to be doing a Kickstarter for the novel at the end of September with Kevin J. Anderson. So people will be able to get that book and see a version of the story. It's not the final story that's being made into a film, but it's a version of it that kind of evolved halfway through its development, and it's kind of cool. So that's going to be happening. We're currently trying to secure some partnerships in Europe to produce the film right now. So, and Ming Na Wen still remains attached. So does Isai Morales and Brianna Hildebrand. So we just have to see if we can put together all the money. So we're working on it. So, so that's it. In all likelihood, it'll be shot in England or in Germany. Maybe next fall. That's the earliest we're looking at. So
cool. Well, fingers crossed that comes through, because that's going to be pretty special.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Andrew commented, said thanks Jeffrey for your passion in regards to this project, and of course the Eagle. And I'm glad you enjoyed the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Yep.
Thanks, Andrew. And Dennis is saying great show. Super excited about the Kickstarter and possible special model. Thanks, Dennis, for joining as always. And thanks, Ian. Glad you enjoyed the show.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for coming. Yeah. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, so pretty good, pretty cool. And it's again, Jeffrey, it's always a great time having you on. And
absolutely. No, it's just fun, just shooting the breeze, as they say. Cool. Yeah.
So everyone, have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful weekend. Today's only Friday, so it's always like to say, live long and prosper.
I can do that. Right? Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. All right.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Take care.